So many of us grow up believing that love is supposed to feel like a fairy tale, that it should hit us like a wave, sudden, overwhelming, magical. We wait for that cinematic moment, that lightning bolt chemistry, that undeniable feeling that sweeps us away. And when we don't feel it instantly, or when it fades, we begin to doubt whether it was love at all. But here's the truth. Real love isn't just something you fall into, it's something you choose. The moment I realized this, my entire perspective on relationships changed. Because feelings are beautiful, yes, but they're also unreliable. They rise and fall with our moods, our hormones, our stress levels, our insecurities. You can feel deeply connected to someone one moment and distant the next. That doesn't make the love gone. It means love needs more than just emotion to survive. It needs intention. When someone chooses to stay on the days it's hard, that's love. When they choose patience in moments of misunderstanding, that's love. When they still show up for you, not because it's convenient, but because they're committed, that's the kind of love that endures. And this goes both ways. Love is not just about finding someone who makes you feel a certain way. It's about becoming someone who shows up with consistency, who communicates through discomfort, who chooses to love, even when it would be easier to check out. There are days when you won't feel in love. You'll feel frustrated, tired, disconnected. You might even question everything. But what matters in those moments isn't how you feel. It's what you do. Do you lean in or do you retreat? Do you choose to repair or do you let pride win? That's why I say real love is less about butterflies and more about decisions, because feelings alone don't build a relationship. But choices, daily, deliberate, grounded choices do. In fact, the moment you start choosing love over chasing the feeling of love is the moment your relationship matures. That's when you begin to experience a different kind of connection, one that's rooted in respect, reliability, and real emotional intimacy. And ironically, it's in those moments, when love is expressed through effort, not impulse, that the deepest feelings often return. Because trust grows, security grows, appreciation grows, and you fall in love all over again. Not with a fantasy, but with the reality of someone who chooses you and whom you choose in return. Real love isn't a passive emotion. It's an active commitment. It's not about how someone makes you feel in the moment, but how they make you feel over time. Safe, seen, and chosen. Again and again. That's when you know it's real. When love stops being a feeling you wait for and starts being a decision you make. In the early stages of a relationship, it's easy to get swept up in how someone makes you feel. You feel seen, attractive, desired, important. Your phone lights up and your heart skips. Their attention feels like oxygen, and suddenly your emotional world revolves around how they respond to you. And while those feelings are intoxicating, they can also be misleading. What most people don't realize is that feeling good in someone's presence doesn't necessarily mean the relationship is good for you. Some people can make you feel amazing for a few weeks and leave you emotionally drained for years. That's because feeling good is not the same as being good for each other. Real love, the kind that lasts, goes beyond the emotional high. It's not just about the butterflies. It's about how the relationship contributes to your personal growth. It's not about escaping your life with someone. It's about building something real within your life. The moment I realized this was when I started asking different questions in my relationships. Not just how do they make me feel, but who am I becoming around them? Do they challenge me in the right ways? Do they support my evolution? Or do they subtly hold me back? Love that's built to last is not one that just keeps you comfortable. It's one that helps you grow. Sometimes the relationships that feel the best in the beginning are the very ones that stunt your growth in the long run, because comfort can become complacency, and chemistry without alignment becomes chaos. But the right person will stretch you, not break you. They'll call you out when you're playing small, not because they want to control you, but because they believe in your potential. And you'll do the same for them. Growth in love looks like two people who are committed not just to each other, but to becoming the best versions of themselves, with each other. It's being with someone who celebrates your wins, not competes with them. Someone who helps you face your fears instead of enabling them. Someone who encourages you to speak your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, because they care more about real connection than surface-level peace. And the growth isn't always comfortable. In fact, it rarely is. But the difference is, in a relationship rooted in growth, the hard conversations don't push you apart, they pull you closer. You become more emotionally intelligent together, more self-aware, more courageous. You start solving problems instead of repeating patterns. So yes, in the beginning, how someone makes you feel matters. But the real question, the one that reveals whether it's real love, is how you evolve with them. Because a relationship that doesn't challenge you to grow is just a connection, not a commitment. And love that lasts is always a space where both people can grow, not just together, but because of each other. Chemistry is exciting, it's intense, it makes your heart race, your thoughts spin, and it can convince you in a moment that you found the one. And yes, it's important. You want that spark, that draw, that undeniable pull towards someone. But chemistry alone is never enough to build something that lasts. Because chemistry can be misleading. It doesn't require depth. It doesn't require effort. It doesn't even require compatibility. It can exist between two people who are completely wrong for each other long term. That's why consistency matters more. You can have incredible chemistry with someone who never texts you back, who cancels plans last minute, who says the right things but doesn't follow through. Chemistry without consistency creates anxiety, not connection. It keeps you stuck in your head, second-guessing, overanalyzing, wondering where you stand. And when that happens, you're no longer experiencing love. You're experiencing emotional instability disguised as romance. True emotional security, the kind that builds real love, doesn't come from unpredictable highs. It comes from knowing someone will show up, that their actions match their words, that their effort is steady, not just situational, that they're there when it's exciting and when it's inconvenient. Consistency creates safety, and safety creates the foundation for everything else: trust, intimacy, vulnerability, growth. You know you're dealing with someone serious when their behavior doesn't depend on their mood or the circumstances. They don't disappear when things get hard. They don't become distant the moment life gets busy. They remain present, even in the quiet, uneventful parts of the relationship. That's when love starts to feel grounded, not like something you have to chase, but something you can trust. The problem is, many people confuse chemistry for compatibility. They think because the connection is intense, it must be right. But intensity is often rooted in insecurity. It makes you feel alive, but it rarely makes you feel at peace. On the other hand, consistency might feel boring at first compared to the roller coaster of emotional highs. But over time, you realize it's exactly what you need. Because real love doesn't require adrenaline to be exciting. It becomes exciting in the deepening of connection, in the way you begin to understand each other without needing to explain, in the way they remember the details that matter to you, in the way they follow through, not just once, but every time. Eventually, the question shifts from "do we have chemistry" to "can I rely on this person? Do they make me feel calm, seen, and safe?" When you start valuing consistency over chemistry, you stop falling for the loudest energy in the room and start connecting with the quiet strength of someone who's actually ready to love you. That's the moment love stops being a roller coaster and starts being real. One of the most powerful signs that you're experiencing real love is when you feel safe enough to be fully yourself. No masks, no performances, no need to impress. You're not constantly editing your words, hiding your flaws, or trying to live up to a version of yourself you think they'll find more lovable. Instead, you show up as you are, messy, honest, imperfect, and they still stay. So many relationships begin with a version of ourselves that's curated. We want to be liked, desired, admired, and that's natural. But real intimacy doesn't begin until the performance ends. And that only happens when you feel emotionally safe. Not just physically comfortable, but emotionally held, where your opinions are respected, your quirks are welcomed, and your emotions aren't treated as too much. In real love, you don't fear being too sensitive or too emotional. You're not constantly monitoring your behavior to avoid being misunderstood. You can have a bad day and not worry that your emotional dip will push them away. You don't have to hide your past or pretend your life is perfect. Because you've finally found someone who doesn't love you despite your truth, they love you through it. That emotional safety allows for the kind of honesty that relationships need to thrive. You can say what's on your heart without walking on eggshells. You can bring up difficult conversations, trusting that you'll be met with curiosity rather than defensiveness. You can make a mistake and know it won't be weaponized against you later. That kind of safety transforms the way you relate because it creates space for growth rather than fear. And here's what's most beautiful. When you feel safe to be yourself, you naturally become a better partner. You stop reacting from insecurity. You stop playing games. You stop hiding behind silence or sarcasm or withdrawal. Instead, you communicate with clarity. You listen with compassion. You show up with your whole self because you know your whole self is welcome. When love is real, it doesn't demand perfection. It invites truth. It's not about who you pretend to be in the beginning. It's about who you allow yourself to become over time. And when someone creates a space where you feel free to be real, that's when you know. This isn't just a connection. This is home, because at the end of the day, love that forces you to shrink, perform, or hide is not love. It's approval on conditions, but love that allows you to breathe, to speak, to be seen. That's the kind that heals you. That's the kind that changes your life. That's when you realize this is what it's supposed to feel like. Not perfect, not always easy, but safe, true, real. One of the most underrated signs of real love is when someone supports you in quiet, consistent ways, without needing to make a show of it. We're often taught to look for grand. What matters far more than what someone says they'll do is what they do when no one's watching, when no one's asking, and when it's not convenient. Real love lives in the quiet. It shows up when they check in on you after a hard day. Not because they're trying to score points, but because they're genuinely tuned into your emotional world. It's them remembering something you said weeks ago and acting on it. It's the small, subtle ways they carry the weight with you without ever needing credit. You begin to realize the difference between someone who's performing love and someone who's actually practicing it. Loud promises are easy to make in the heat of emotion. It's easy to say, "I'll always be here for you" when everything is good. But the true test is whether they're still there when things aren't easy. When you're tired, moody, or not at your best. That's when silent support shows up, and it speaks louder than any words ever could. You'll find that the most powerful expressions of love are often the least dramatic. It's the quiet presence during your silence, the unspoken understanding in a moment of sadness, the way they sit beside you without trying to fix everything, just so you don't feel alone. You don't need fireworks when you feel steady. You don't need poetic words when their presence already brings peace. And the deeper you grow in love, the more you'll begin to value these quiet moments. You'll see that the people who make you feel most loved are not the ones who talk the most about it. They're the ones whose actions are aligned, day in and day out. They don't disappear when life gets messy. They don't need constant attention. They don't perform. They simply show up again and again. Because real love isn't in what they promise to do tomorrow. It's in what they choose to do today, without being asked, without needing recognition. You stop looking for big statements because you've learned to trust the small ones. The text that says, "I'm proud of you." The hug that lasts a little longer when you didn't say you needed it. The way they quietly support your dreams behind the scenes. It's in those moments you feel safest. Not because they said they'd catch you, but because they already have over and over again. That's when you realize real love doesn't need to be loud to be heard. It just needs to be real. Anyone can love you when you're at your best, when you're thriving, smiling, productive, attractive, full of energy. That part of you is easy to love. It's the version you show the world, the one that wins praise, the one you probably feel safest presenting. But the real test of love is how someone responds when you're not shining, when you're overwhelmed, confused, anxious, or low. That's where real love reveals itself. Not in how they treat your strengths, but in how they hold your struggles. There's something incredibly powerful about being loved in your darkness. Not tolerated, not fixed, loved. When someone doesn't flinch at the parts of you you've spent years trying to hide, when they don't withdraw the moment you get quiet, when they don't shame your sensitivity, your doubt, or your fear, but instead sit beside it with tenderness and patience. Many people can fall in love with your confidence, your ambition, your humor. But the ones who stay when that confidence fades, who don't retreat when you're emotionally distant, who show compassion when you feel emotionally messy, That's the kind of person who's capable of loving you deeply, not conditionally. The moment I realized it was real love was when I broke down. Not in some big dramatic way, but in a quiet moment where I couldn't fake being okay anymore. And they didn't panic or pull away. They didn't try to fix me or make it about themselves. They just stayed, listened, held space. That kind of acceptance in your least polished state is the most healing experience a relationship can offer. You learn that love doesn't always need to solve your pain. Sometimes it just needs to hold it with you. Sometimes what we need most is someone who doesn't try to make us better, but just makes us feel like we're not broken for feeling the way we do. When someone truly loves your darkness, they don't see it as a threat to the relationship. They see it as an opportunity for deeper connection. They're not afraid to see you cry. They're not intimidated by your vulnerability. They don't minimize your feelings or make you feel like a burden. Instead, they see your honesty as intimacy. And because of that, you begin to feel safe in a way you never have before. Real love isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about being chosen when you're not your most lovable. It's about being seen in your shadows and still being held as if you're the most valuable thing in the world. That's when you stop fearing your own darkness. Because someone has shown you that it's not something to hide. It's something that can be loved too. And that's when you know. It's not just love, it's real love. One of the most surprising shifts that happens when you experience real love is the sudden calm that replaces the anxious need for constant reassurance. In past relationships, you might have found yourself overthinking text, replaying conversations, wondering where you stood, needing verbal confirmation that you were still cared for, still chosen. That uncertainty becomes exhausting, and over time, it chips away at your self-worth. You start to feel like you're walking a tightrope, constantly checking to see if you're still safe. But when love is real, something subtle yet profound changes. You begin to feel peace. Not because every moment is perfect, but because their behavior gives you no reason to doubt where you stand. They don't keep you guessing. They don't weaponize silence. They don't disappear and come back when it suits them. They are consistent, present, and clear in how they care about you. It's not just what they say. It's how they act over time that quiets the insecurities that may have once screamed inside your mind. They don't just tell you they love you. They show you in how they prioritize you. They don't just respond, they initiate. You no longer feel the pressure to earn their attention or decode mixed signals because they've made it obvious you are valued. And it's in that emotional stability that you begin to relax into the relationship. You stop feeling the urge to test them. You stop needing to ask, "Are we okay?" every few days. You stop scanning for signs that they might be losing interest, because deep down you know they're not going anywhere. This kind of peace doesn't come from fantasy or delusion. It comes from patterns of behavior that align with love, not just the performance of it. It's a daily investment they make. Not through grand gestures, but through presence, reliability, and integrity. And as that safety grows, so does your ability to show up more authentically, to give more generously, and to receive love without fear. One of the clearest indicators that you're in something real is when your nervous system begins to settle. You don't feel like you're in survival mode. You're not fighting for scraps of affection. You're not dependent on temporary highs to feel secure. Love no longer feels like something that needs to be proven every day. It feels like something that's simply there. And the most beautiful part? That peace allows you to give love back without attachment, without fear, without needing to constantly monitor the relationship. You get to be instead of performing. And from that place, real intimacy begins. Because when it's real love, reassurance becomes a byproduct of presence, not a request you have to keep making. That's when you realize peace isn't boring. It's the evidence that you're finally safe. So often when we experience difficult emotions in a relationship, whether it's jealousy, fear, sadness, or confusion, we rush to fix those feelings. We want to solve the problem, change the situation, or find immediate answers so that the discomfort disappears. We try to reason ourselves out of feeling hurt or anxious. But what real love teaches us is that sometimes what we really need isn't a quick fix. It's the permission to fully feel those emotions. Emotions aren't problems to be solved, they're signals to be understood. When you allow yourself to feel the depth of your emotional experience, you gain insight into what your heart truly needs. When you suppress or deny those feelings, they don't disappear. They get buried, only to resurface later, often in ways that confuse or harm the relationship. In a real love connection, you don't have to hide your vulnerability or pretend everything is okay. You can be honest with yourself and with your partner about what you're feeling. Even if it's uncomfortable, you realize that feeling deeply is a strength, not a weakness. It's part of what makes you human and connected. This means that instead of rushing to fix your insecurities or anxieties, you learn to sit with them. You become curious about why you feel the way you do. Is it fear of abandonment? Is it past wounds resurfacing? Is it a need for more clarity or reassurance? By naming these emotions and exploring them, you can communicate more clearly with your partner and build understanding rather than defensiveness. The person who loves you truly doesn't demand that you be fixed before they can love you. They don't view your feelings as obstacles or flaws to overcome. Instead, they see your emotional honesty as an invitation to deepen intimacy. They want to hear your fears, your doubts, your sadness. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. And when you stop trying to immediately fix everything, you create space for healing. Healing doesn't always happen overnight. It's a process of feeling, understanding, and growing. Real love is patient with this process. It gives you time to process your emotions without judgment or pressure. This is why some of the most transformative moments in relationships come not from quick solutions, but from shared vulnerability. When you and your partner can sit together in discomfort, hold each other's pain, and simply feel it, that's when trust deepens, when walls come down, and when real connection forms. So if you find yourself rushing to fix the relationship or your feelings, pause. Remember that love doesn't always demand action or answers. Sometimes it demands presence. Sometimes it demands empathy. Sometimes it demands that you allow yourself to feel fully and authentically. Because when you do, you don't just survive love, you truly experience it. And that is when you know it's real. So, what is real love? It's not just a feeling or a fleeting rush of excitement. It's the quiet moments where consistency beats chemistry, where safety invites vulnerability, and where silent support matters more than loud promises. It's when you can be your whole self, light and dark, and still feel deeply accepted and held. Real love replaces anxiety with peace, and it teaches you that you don't always need to fix what's broken. Sometimes you just need to feel it fully and honestly. The moment I knew it was real love wasn't some dramatic fireworks display. It was the moment I felt safe enough to show my true self, the moment I saw actions match words day after day, the moment peace settled in my heart instead of doubt. Real love is steady, it's patient, it's brave enough to stay through the highs and lows. And when you find that, you don't have to question it, you just know. Because real love isn't perfect, but it's real. And it's the most powerful force to transform your life.